Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Executive Insights for Life Sciences Innovators. Thank you for joining us today. On this podcast, we'll explore leadership, innovation, and growth in the life sciences sector. I'm Don Alexander, founder of GeneCoda, a boutique executive search firm dedicated to connecting visionary leaders with life sciences companies shaping the future of therapeutics and scientific tools. On each episode, we'll dive into candid conversations with industry pioneers, uncovering strategies, insights, and real-world experiences that drive success in our industry. If you're interested in presenting as a guest of a future episode, please scan the barcode image found at the top of my video frame and follow the instructions. If you have any issues in doing so, drop a note in the comments section on LinkedIn and we'll follow up after the podcast. Now I'm pleased to be joined by Dr. Nate Stasko, the CEO of Vast Therapeutics. Nate is a leader in the development of drug and therapeutic devices that target immunomodulation and the elimination of pathogens on epithelial surfaces. He's an inventor on over 100 international patent filings, leading to the realization of 2 commercial therapies. Previously, Nate served as president and CEO of Novan Incorporated from inception through a successful initial public offering to become a NASDAQ-listed company in 2016. His decade of leadership in the development of berdazimer drug substance ultimately led to the FDA approval of the first nitric oxide-based therapy in dermatology, ZELSUVMI, in 2024. He served as the principal investigator on 10 federally funded projects, under which Novan successfully scaled berdazimer from academic benchtop experiment to commercial scale and was nationally recognized as a Tibbetts Award winner for excellence in small business innovation research. Year-round, Nate enjoys playing sports with his kids, taking them to sports, and he's also a big North Carolina Tar Heel fan. So welcome, Nate, to the podcast. We'll
Thank
dive right in. First, we're going to talk a little bit about Nate's career journey and his leadership philosophy. So, Nate, what inspired your focus on nitric oxide therapies in the life sciences industry, and why hasn't anyone ever done this kind of thing before?
Well, Don, that's a really excellent question. My focus on nitric oxide was really motivated by doing something no one could think was technically possible, to take a gas and transform it into a liquid or a solid, and a stable drug substance requires complex chemistry, lots of manufacturing, and we had this great scientific vision, but what we ended up doing was, building multiple successful businesses out of that core vision around using nitric oxide, which your body makes, as sort of a natural biologic, and giving it back to patients where they need it the most.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Can you share, Nate, pivotal moments in your career that led you to your current role at Vast Therapeutics?
Well, a few years ago, like many companies affected by the pandemic, we were deeply entrenched in an organization developing a treatment for COVID-19 in the outpatient setting. And I had the opportunity to run a number of clinical trials in COVID-19, and that was my first exposure to respiratory. But in 2022, I had the opportunity to come back to this really small biotech environment and build and lead a team again. And that's what I'm really most passionate about. I love doing it at Novan. I think what motivates me is the element of building from small scale to large scale. And I also had an opportunity to get into respiratory, which has a tremendous amount of unmet need. After spending much of my career in derm, it's clear that the unmet needs in respiratory are significant, and really the opportunity to work on life-saving therapies I couldn't pass up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. How has your leadership philosophy evolved over the years, especially in leading biotech startups?
Over the years, I would say philosophically that I've learned that no detail is too small. I think it's really important that as a leader of the company, you have obviously visibility into all aspects, but the smallest details can make or break your success. The number of patients or subjects in the vehicle arm, the number of animals in a non-clinical study, the type of controls that you run. I mean, every little detail has an impact on whether or not that particular study is successful. And so, one, I've just gained an appreciation for the details, and I try to communicate that to the technical team. And the second biggest thing that I would say I've learned over the years is to be able to broadly communicate the impact of a scientific decision on the organization itself. We're all building and developing businesses. We all are chasing life altering medicines in the biotech space, but the ability to translate to your team of how this one particular technical decision actually impacts the whole business, I think creates a lot more buy-in for the employees and a unified culture, even with single-digit employees.
Gotcha. Okay, fantastic. Let's switch gears and talk a little bit about innovations and trends in the life sciences sector. Can you explain, I guess, how Vast Therapeutics nitric oxide technology addresses key challenges in treating chronic respiratory diseases?
So one of the things that's sort of shifting in respiratory is a renewed focus on the underlying inflammation that occurs in these diseases. Some of them, like rare diseases like cystic fibrosis, have a genetic underlying mutation, but a lot of the chronic respiratory disorders like bronchiectasis and COPD, inflammation is at their core. And our approach and our vision is that there are microbes at the heart of that. And Pseudomonas aeruginosa is one of the most pro-inflammatory, nastiest multi-drug resistant organisms that's out there in the space. And so when we're targeting patients specifically with this bad bug, which we don't have drugs to treat, our goal is to eliminate that organism and restore lung function, renewing the quality of life like you never had that particular bacteria.
Excellent, excellent. How does your approach, I guess, differ from existing therapies in the market?
Well, our nitric oxide approach specifically utilizes NO to kill bacteria. It's not an antibiotic. So there's no antibiotic resistance associated with nitric oxide. And what that allows you to do is use the therapy for prolonged periods. This is not a 7-day course of therapy and to eliminate a microbe. It's a 6-month or 1-year chronic therapy to eliminate the microbe completely and maintain, a good bioburden in the lungs. So one, there's no resistance. Two, really the improved safety profile. We believe, based on studies to date, that nitric oxide-based therapies could lead to long-term therapies without the hearing loss, associated liver toxicity, and the box warnings that you've seen for many inhaled antibiotics brought to the market.
Excellent, excellent. And thinking about trends, I suppose, in respiratory medicine generally, what types of trends excite you the most right now?
I think the renewed emphasis on partnering. Respiratory is getting the depth of pathology research that it finally deserves. It was a lot like dermatology in my experience there, where so much funding is dedicated, and appropriately so, to cancer and some of these other high mortality indications. But in respiratory, the deeper we understand the disease pathology itself, it's going to lead to better medicines that ultimately lead to better quality of life for patients. And so I just think the renewed focus on the disease understanding, and then as long as capital keeps flowing into respiratory as well, I think there's going to be a big wave that some of the new companies like Verona, Insmed's success last year in 2024. You've seen mega multi-billion-dollar respiratory deals done, GSK and Aeolus Bios, for a drug still in phase 2. So I think that there's great enthusiasm not just in the orphan space, but also in the major chronic indications like asthma and COPD.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you. So I'm going to put up a QR code here now, and I want to talk a little bit about scaling, funding, and business strategy, which I am certain that a lot of our audience is interested in. This QR code that I've put up is a link to Vast Therapeutics offering, and Nate, you may want to say a little bit more about it.
Yeah, this QR code specifically is a Reg CF offering made available through Start Engine Primary LLC. They are a FINRA SEC registered broker dealer, and investments made through Start Engine on this particular portal are illiquid and may not be suitable for all investors. But this particular offering is technically a Series B financing for preferred stock, and I would refer you to our offering materials and our risk factors for more details. But we're going to talk a little bit about how this exciting opportunity for crowdfunding exists, I think, in the biotech space for opportunities to pull in anywhere from $1 to $20 million in capital for early stage businesses. And I'm really happy to share our experience. And so that's an example of a live deal and a live offering we have that will run through March 17th. And I would encourage you all to understand that the risks and uncertainties of drug development, our business is subject to those, and Vast is no different than every other biotech company where investments considered invest may not lead to desired outcomes and could include the potential risk of losing your whole investment. Okay, with that aside, I'm happy to share, Don, with your audience, our experience in launching the Start Engine campaign, why we looked at it as a parallel source of capital to our other financing efforts, and any other questions you might have.
Oh, carry on. I think that's wonderful. I think everybody's interested. I know this from what I've learned, Vast, I don't know if they're the first to do it, but certainly it seems like something that we're seeing a little bit more frequently. So I'm curious as to, why you chose crowdfunding as a method of raising capital, and, kind of how you anticipate it impacting the company's growth and what it involved.
Sure. So Reg CF with the SEC actually stands for Regulation Crowdfunding. And under a Reg CF filing, you can raise up to $5 million from any investors that they do not have to be accredited investors. And but there is a cap for investors that can invest that are not accredited. And it opens up the opportunity to get involved in early stage biotech to a much bigger audience of people. The number of people interested in changing medicine and being involved with biotech companies are large, but the number of people that can write, 6-7 figure checks as an individual are relatively small. So what we are able to do was bring on board all those people who are passionate about helping cystic fibrosis or COPD patients in chronic respiratory. And we have had a lot of demand from our patient families and as we started to build awareness on our disease. And so this was a method where investors can invest directly through Start Engine. And we chose Start Engine as a company. There are several others out there. We chose them based on their management team, the billions of dollars of capital they've raised for small companies, and really just the speed and flexibility of their platform. The process from engagement to launching your deal, if you're really being aggressive, can be as quick as 90 days. And the amount of money you can raise is based on your reviewed or audited financial status. For us, the ability to access capital that we could bring in from a larger shareholder base in parallel with our traditional healthcare institutional venture money and corporate partnering efforts was significant. It allowed us more time, bought us more operating runway, and you saw how we're using creative financing. Last week we announced we raised $2 million in NIH grant funding for targeting Pseudomonas and chronic disease. So my advice to small early stage biotech companies is to be as aggressive as you can with as many different avenues as you can. You've got to get in the game, and things, you just keep moving your feet, and then they'll start to pay off over time.
Great, Nate. Thank you for that. Just dovetailing on that question for a moment. I mean, what other advice, if you will, would you give to biotech startups seeking funding in today's landscape? Anything else they might do?
Um, I would definitely consider um, raising as much capital as you can as early as you can. The later stage that you get, the more risks that are coming on, the more selective investors are getting. There's a lot of great technologies that struggle to get capital as they progress, just because you don't have every question identified. Um, the peak time to raise as much money as you can would be, Series A, I would say. There's the ceiling is as high as it's ever going to be in the Series A. And then I would also advise for new companies or early stage companies is I would not sweat the dilution. If the investor's telling you you should raise 10 to 20 million more dollars to extend your operating runway, you should take it and not worry about the extra dilution. And the only other thing I want to mention for early entrepreneurs is, if you haven't ever seen it, take a minute to read The Founder's Dilemma. It's a Harvard Business Review article. You can find it online. Founder's Dilemma. And it's an excellent quick read. I wish I'd have seen it earlier in my entrepreneurial journey 20 years ago. So if you have not read it and you're developing a new innovation, academic spin out, early stage company, make sure you read and understand really the essence of that article at an early stage.
That's great. Some really good advice, Nate. Thank you. Understanding that Vast Therapeutics is a fairly virtual company, what would have been, I guess, the biggest or any challenges in scaling, and how do you overcome those?
Yeah, I would say the ability to select really good partners is make or break for an organization. And by partners, I mean third parties. And so there's a really distinct difference between a vendor and a partner. And we used to talk about this all the time. Like what makes a vendor, what makes a partner, right? Well, everybody can provide services, but a vendor is someone that's purely transactional, and they provide service and you give them money, right? But in drug development, especially with resource constrained, virtual, small organizations, the vendors that you pick that become partners are going to make or break the success of your company. You want people that are feeling the same pain as you, that are passionate as you about drug development, but also small and nimble. I'll give you an example of one local company who really understands that well. Kymanox is a great service provider, but they're also a great partner, from their executives down to their operating level talent. I think they're a great example of a good partner. And obviously, the amount of money that you're investing in the project, it scales with the amount of diligence you should do on that partner. I mean, if you're going to run a $35 million phase 3 program, that's much more rigorous than if you're going to do a $50,000 stability study.
Absolutely. Great shout out there. Let's transition then to just kind of the vision for the future. How is Vast Therapeutics preparing for future challenges and opportunities in respiratory medicine?
Well, I think, we are built to partner. Our patent portfolio around how we stabilize the NO drug itself, the new chemical entity, and then how it's formulated, second, and then the actual inhalation device, third. I mean, the integration of the drug substance, drug product, and device is paramount in respiratory. And we can make subtle changes at the second and third stages to create a subtly differentiated medicine. One may be more tailored towards cystic fibrosis, and then maybe in COPD we need metered dose inhaler that actually, is easier to use, can be scaled to a broader number of patient populations that aren't comfortable doing nebulization on a daily basis. So we've thought about that as we constructed our IP portfolio. We filed that internationally, and so we're prepared to partner both by indication, by geography, and I think that that will enable us success to really realize the potential of nitric oxide in respiratory medicine for all these chronic lung diseases. 500 million Americans worldwide have, or excuse me, 500 million people worldwide have chronic lung disease. And it's not going to be Vast that gets them the drug to all of them. It's going to take a significant number of global partnerships.
Absolutely. You mentioned and congratulations on the NIH recent award. So I'm sure that's part of this question, but can you share any upcoming initiatives or projects that you're particularly excited about?
Well, since you mentioned the NIH grant award, I mean, we had great success in my previous company that we built, as you mentioned in the intro, with federal non-dilutive funding to complement our equity capital. And so we have fired up a similar engine here at Vast. We have over $10 million of awards that are in the pipeline, different stages of the application or pending process. And so the first 2 million has been awarded of that 10 that we're targeting. And so I think the public-private partnerships are going to be paramount for us moving forward. And then the number of nonprofits, organizations that exist, COPD Foundation, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, even smaller ones like Emily's Entourage, focused on the rare 10% NCF. We're not always going to be able to seek dollars financially from them, but understanding the patient voice is really big at Vast. We are a patient-centered drug development organization, and how do we get patients in our trials faster? I mean, just having access to them or being able to message to them or network within that community is key. I mean, if you could take your trial enrollment from a year to 6 months, everybody knows that that's a significant cost savings. So these partnership organizations are going to be key for us. And I do want to mention that one of the other avenues and why we created the Start Engine fundraising campaign, and that QR code is still on the screen, was to start promoting the awareness of our drug at an early stage in those rare or orphan disease populations. It allows us to begin getting the word out there and almost recoup our investment for what we put forth in helping spread that word. And so organically, I think, people want to jump on board with a company that has a basic premise where you can do well by doing good for others at the same time. You can do well financially and create potential life-saving medicines for patients at the same time.
Yeah, that's really important. I can really see how that would push patient advocacy or drive patient advocacy, if you will. So as we come to I guess, towards the close of our session here today, what final thoughts or advice would you like to share with the audience based on your entrepreneurial journey?
I would say definitely be fearless. That's the first and foremost thing. Drug development I tell the team this a lot, drug development is hard, don't make it any harder. The challenges your team is going to face are going to be significant almost at every turn. And, don't put barriers up for yourself. Don't, have infighting or, a team who can't overcome those challenges together, because that's what I mean by making it harder than it is. And ultimately, it's a series of challenges you have to manage on a day-to-day basis. And if you're able to do that over 8+ years, and you keep focused on the patients, you're going to have a pretty long journey in this industry.
Absolutely. Fantastic. How can listeners, I guess, connect with you or learn more about Vast Therapeutics?
Well, you can visit our campaign page, either at the QR code or www.startengine.com/offering /Vast-Therapeutics, and the QR code may be a much more direct way to get there. So that has our campaign offering document, terms about how to potentially get involved in that. Or you can actually contact me directly on LinkedIn. I respond to direct messages, and I'm open to receiving contacts on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Great. So that basically, Nate, unless you have anything else, that wraps up this episode of Executive Insights for Life Sciences Innovators. Appreciate everyone tuning in. We may have had some technical difficulty at the beginning. I hope that was remedied, but we hope you found today's conversation valuable. If you enjoyed the discussion, please be sure to leave a comment, a review comment, and share it with your network. And please also bookmark your calendar for February 24th. It's an upcoming Monday at 2 o'clock with Richard Shea, the CEO of Basking Biosciences, and more details will be out about that next week. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Nate.